Hello, everybody, and welcome to the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury. Thank you so much for joining us today and making TeacherCast your home for professional development. This is TeacherCast Podcast episode number 202. Today, we're going to be talking all about gamification and how you guys can do something just a little bit different in your classrooms today. Before we get to our show, I want to remind you guys that today's episode is sponsored by the brand new Educational Podcast Directory. If you guys are out there listening to this podcast, you are probably thinking to yourself, where can I learn about other great educators who are out there making podcasts for my professional development? I am excited to share with you guys that the Educational Podcasting Directory can be found over at educationalpodcastdirectory.com, and we have over 140 teachers right now that are signed up and are sharing their content over on the Educational Podcast Directory. Check it out today over at educationalpodcastdirectory.com. We also want to remind you that we've got some great stuff for instructional technology coaches. If you go over to the brand new site, askthetechcoach.com, we have built an entire technology coaching world to help you guys get a leg up on the school year. Of course, this is the time of year when all of our tech coaches are getting themselves ready to go back to, getting ready to go back to school. It is almost August, guys. We are so excited to be launching that this summer, and we hope you guys have a chance to check it out. And of course, every Monday we have our Ask the Tech Coach podcast dropping every single Monday morning at 6 a.m. We hope you guys have a chance to check it out and share TeacherCast with your friends today. As we said, today we're going to be talking all about gamification. We have two great guests from the Promethean company. First, I want to introduce Miss Cheryl Miller. Cheryl, how are you doing today?
I'm doing very well, thank you.
It is so nice to have you. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What are some of the great things happening these days at Promethean?
Well, I've been in the technology space for a while now, over 20 years, which really just makes me old. And I am on day 5 at Promethean. So for me, everything is very new and lots of exciting stuff going on as I take a look at our brand and our campaigns, our products, our teachers, our community, a lot of really fun and exciting things that are happening.
Well, thank you so much for being here. I also want to bring on Steve Hollowell. He is the Chief Product Officer for Promethean. Steve, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot for having me on. A little bit about myself. I actually joined Promethean about 1.5 years ago. I've been working in education for just over 10 years. I came to Promethean from my time at Amazon Web Services, where I started the cloud for AWS in education. And it's super exciting to join a company like Promethean and get the opportunity to help create the next generation of products. We are, as some folks know, a 20-plus year veteran in the K-12 space. We have a really strong ethos around our tagline internally is for teachers by teachers. We employ a large group of teachers that give us advice, evangelize our products, work with end customers on deployments and adoption, and actually had rolled out some new messaging over the last year where our tagline was for the love of learning, because that's a lot about what we do. We're a very mission-driven company that's very centric around K-12.
I love that you guys are creating great products and you're using teachers as that guide and focus to help bring together some great technologies for our students. Now, before we started the recording, you and I had mentioned that you were in Philadelphia for the ISTE conference. Talk to us a little bit about that. From a company's point of view, what is it like to be at a mega conference like that, working with teachers, learning from teachers, and really getting a chance to ask teachers that question, what do you guys want to see in your classrooms?
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. I will say this. There's been some interesting dialogue about ISTE and their direction over the last few years. We're very excited about it. We see a lot more teachers and curriculum directors at ISTE now than were there years ago. And for us, that's exciting because we get more and better feedback. I have been hearing feedback from other companies that try to deliver technology into K-12 that they feel that this direction for ISTE is less interesting because they want to talk to IT directors. They want to talk to folks that are normally in the buying cycle rather in the use and in the classroom. For us, we're super excited to talk to IT directors, but we're motivated. We're learning when we're talking to teachers, when we're finding out what's going on. I thought that the content this year was very challenging. I thought there was a pretty wide array of folks there that were representing some traditional approaches in the classroom, but also some really new things. And, I always make my way down to the entry level end of the floor where this year there were literally hundreds of new companies that were there talking about how they might impact teaching and student outcomes in different ways using, robots and STEM, but also just language learning and other things. So I thought it was a very broad show this year, and we're excited to see that. We know that it takes a lot of different angles, a lot of different approaches to reach all the students out there.
And certainly when you have a conference where there's 20,000 educators, vendors, everybody coming together to figure out what's that new and important thing. This was my 7th ISTE. It's always that time where I look back and say, okay, what are we looking to do? What have we done? What works? And really what's been reinventing itself throughout the last couple of years. And one of those things that I notice is really emerging again is gamification. That's something that you guys certainly know about, and I'd love to get your thoughts on this. When we're looking at that 2019-2020 school year, what do we mean by gamification? Because that definition has changed in the last couple of years.
Yeah, it definitely does, and I hope it continues to change as we all keep learning about it. When we look at gamification, and I think it's really healthy that different companies and different schools and districts do have different definitions. But for us, we know that gamification is effective when there are activities that can be approached creatively. In other words, there's more than one way to solve a particular challenge, or that there is the opportunity to do backwards grading, where students earn points rather than lose points. Badging has certainly been a core part of gaming over the gamification over the last few years, but we see folks doing really interesting things with that and using that much more effectively as a motivator, as a way to demonstrate proficiency. Goal setting and participation in goal setting is one of the other things that we recognize is important as you're trying to move from, across the different types of approaches and say, what are we doing differently here? How do we put the students in charge of goal setting? And then lastly, I think is the opportunity in gamification for students to play different roles as a part of that effort, whether there's judging or there's different types of opportunities. When you get to take any part of those 5 elements and include them in a lesson or an activity, you're getting some of that great traction and motivation and stickiness that gamification can offer. So that's where our head is on the gamification piece.
The nice thing about gamification as it's evolved over the last couple of years is it doesn't have to necessarily be heavy technology. It could be board games. It could be console games. It could be Minecraft. It could be a lot of different things. What are your thoughts?
I was just going to say that I think I love the idea of adding points instead of taking points away. And right now, if you think through just students in K through 12, there's so much of their lives that is spent online, watching videos and engaging video games. And so bringing the natural kind of competitive nature that you have typically through sports into the classroom, and instead of it being just a very individual thing, but more of a collaborative thing where they can compete in a good way against each other. I think I know it for my kids, it brings their attention and their just engagement level up a lot.
Now, when we're looking at what you just said, and I love that quote of bringing that competitive nature of sports into the classroom, are all classrooms equipped for this? Again, it doesn't really matter about technology, but is there anything that a teacher needs to be thinking about when he or she wants to start gamifying or bringing that kind of bringing those kind of lessons into their classrooms?
I agree with you. I think that gamification in and of itself can be done in an empty room, right? I don't believe you need technology. I think that component of gamifying education has been around as long as there have been great teachers. I think as a technology company that focuses on K-12, we are constantly trying to figure out how we add value to what teachers can think about. And specifically, how do we make it easier to start? How do we make it a more seamless interaction? And how do we create an ability to have reinforcements at really the touch of a button or at a fingertip versus something that teacher may need to build or may need to spend additional time preparing? We really want to try and lower the barrier to entry to a creative lesson, or to allow teachers to modify their approach, because they know that this year the kids that they have may require a different approach than last year. And they need to be able to mix that up, right? There is no one size fits all in K-12. And that goes for technology, but the core of that is how do we fold ourselves around teachers so that they can change and do what they need to do.
Well, I'm glad that you mentioned the fact that you guys are very focused on what is happening and how you guys can be a part of that as the Promethean company. Talk to us a little bit about some of the answers that you guys have found. When you guys are talking about how I'll say how Promethean, but also how does an ed tech company in general, how do you find yourself, or how do you see yourself as playing a role in that classroom and not just be the thing on the wall? You know what I'm saying like that, right?
Yeah, totally agree. And that is some of our internal discussion as well, to make sure that we are adding that value. So part of that is, and I mentioned it or touched on it earlier, we know that we need to make sure that our products are not just easy to use by themselves, but they're actually easy to use in the classroom, which is a mix or a whirligig or a Rube Goldberg machine of a whole bunch of different pieces of content, different technologies, the visualizations, the other things. It is an environment of the teacher's construction for that class in that year. And so one of the things that we strive to do from a product design and implementation and consulting with customers is to make sure that our approach lends itself to ease of use. So I'll give you one example from our latest product line, which is that all along we've all been thinking about these things that hang on the wall as really big, colorful ways to display video or other things. And this last year, we really stopped and took an outside-in view and said, well, what makes this a better citizen in the classroom? How does this technology be much more approachable and acceptable and lower that barrier to entry, perhaps for the teacher that doesn't like technology, hasn't had a lot of time with that in the past? How do we not only lower the bar, but also create much more performance and variability? So one of the things that we started all over again on was our user interface. And we've basically created a one-of-a-kind user interface where a teacher can get to anything that she's using, whether it's her document camera or her laptop that's external or a plug-in computer, the internet, video, other things, through one unified menuing system. Mm-hmm. So essentially, she just needs to know how to open that menu, and it's as easy as the touch of her finger anywhere that she is, whether she's at left, right, or center of the panel itself. From there, she can navigate to anything she needs to, because we've brought all of those sources of information into one menu. If you think back to the best analogy we've come up to is when you have your home theater set up and you're watching Netflix and you're all good, and then somebody says, hey, I went to Redbox and I got a DVD. Hey, can we play this? Because it was a really good deal. And you think to yourself, I can probably make it play. I'm concerned about whether I'll be able to get all of the parts, the TV, the soundbar, the Blu-ray player. Can I get them all back to the way they were when we were just doing Netflix? So we've actually taken all of that complexity away. We allow our system to do all of that for the teacher so that she doesn't ever have to push that input, source, any of those buttons. And that was just an example of how we try and get out of the way and make the technology support what she wants to do versus be part of a workflow.
One of the things that teachers always talk about when it comes to gamification is the fact that it's a term, it's a word. It's scary for some teachers. They always ask, how do I get started with this? And I often remind them that you guys have been gamifying your class and probably even gamifying your family, right? Like even with me, I've got the 3 kids at home here. We do point systems, we do timeouts, we do, whatever the disciplinary thing is for the kids. That stuff kind of does transfer a little bit into the classroom of, if you do X, you get this. And there's so many classes out there that are doing PBSIS. That's gamification.
I think of it as the gold star mechanism, right? I mean, when I went to elementary school, it was, you got gold stars for, reading and, doing your math assignment and that stuff. I think you want to make it fun, right? And you want to make it inviting. So any kind of framework would work.
Right.
The thing that I think is really awesome about Promethean is coming from technology. When you think through, not everybody is on the same evolution of the classroom and they're planning their lessons and their learning, and students also are different. And so how can you bring different paths and different teaching and different technology evolutions all together? So whether it is literally like a gold star system, or whether you store all your data in the cloud, or you actually have it on your desktop, whatever it is that you need to do to get your job done, and to put the focus on the student and have it be, their environment, their ecosystem is something that I think is truly unique.
Mm-hmm.
And you had mentioned something earlier, Steve. You had mentioned badging and this whole concept of demonstrating the proficiency. And, it doesn't matter what subject or what grade, having a system in your classroom where you can say, you did X, and it doesn't have to be getting an A or a B, or, you did this, and we're going to show off, or we're going to reward you. We're going to motivate you somehow for all that stuff. Those are important skills that all students have to have, no matter what grade or age or anything like that.
Yeah, I agree. In fact, we've been trying to look at that creatively and see what we can do to enable the teacher to show off student work in new ways or different ways. And so one of those examples is just by being able to show from a student's desk, being able to show the work they've done to solve a problem. So we've made it so that if she has a tablet or her phone or something else, that she can simply mirror or cast that using any mobile device that she has and show that on our panel, so that we're doing a very deliberate connection between what might be a piece of paper, but might also be her student's Chromebook or a one-to-one device, and be able to create a connection between that one-to-one device and that front of classroom display that we provide. So you're showing in that world, you're showing the whole class this student's work, and you're praising that student's work and possibly noting some various specific aspects of that. It takes badging from recognition that is static and inherent in a piece of software that did a grade or registered a score, to a more socially active thing that badging can actually be acknowledgement. Badging can be a social construct in the classroom as well, as I've seen some teachers execute on it. And therefore, it's about visibility. And how do we just allow the teacher to create visibility wherever she wants it? So if it's mirroring or casting, if it's in our lesson delivery software, we're able to allow her to do it however she wants to.
I agree with the whole idea of having the student or the teacher do things the way that they want to. It really is creating that choose your own adventure idea in the classroom, where you set up a project and they can help you figure out the way that, 2 students might do the same project and have completely different outcomes, and that's okay. It's giving that freedom and really having that vulnerability in the classroom to say, look, your answer is right and your answer is also right. Just let's figure out this thing together. As long as we understand the concept, this is good.
Yeah, I think gamification needs to be in the classroom of today, especially if you're thinking like K through 6. I think that teachers that are wondering how they could get it started, possibly could even just engage the kids in having that creative component, like let them help determine how they want to gamify their day or gamify their projects. Because I think that they're probably way ahead of where some of, where if I was teaching, I know they'd be way ahead of where I am. And so like, how do they, they might help kind of guide the lesson in a way that unfolds differently and maybe even more accelerated.
Talking today to Cheryl Miller and Steve Hollowell from the Promethean company, a great educational company that, there's a lot of great ways that teachers can reach out and get connected with you guys. Because as a teacher, I like to know how to support my students and how to help these different great ed tech companies. Steve, how can somebody get a hold of you guys if they were looking for some information about Promethean?
Yeah. So frankly, we're an open book, very transparent company. I'd love it if they reached out to me directly at steve.hallowell@prometheanworld.com. They can also reach us online via our support site. We are often cited by our customers as one of the best customer support and customer interaction experiences that they have. We're very proud of that. We're very sensitive to that. We're constantly looking to try and improve and iterate in that area. So if you do reach out to us, we will get back to you. We are teachers that want to work with and talk to other teachers. So helps very, very much. Cheryl, what do you think in terms of that kind of interaction with us?
Definitely. I've been really, I would say, motivated to see the way that we're engaging from a social perspective. Even Jeff, you mentioned with ISTE, we followed up immediately with Camp Promethean and invited all of our users to come and join the camp and share tips and tricks. And that was a very interactive session, lots of great questions. And so if anybody wants to reach out to me, I can cheryl.miller@prometheanworld.com. But I think the company overall is very responsive and very engaged in the community.
I was just going to mention Camp Promethean because I'm seeing all these great videos and talk to us a little bit about that. I mean, talk to us a little bit about ways that you guys are connecting with that educational community.
So I joined it as a user or as a learner, and it was awesome. We brought in all of our top product people and connected them directly with the community, had them going through and doing all the advanced tips and tricks, things that probably aren't, top of your mind when you kick off your day in the classroom. And so it enabled a lot of the teachers to really leverage the value of the active panel and the software that's behind it. And so it was awesome. A lot of good polling and sorting and just good planning stuff.
Yeah, we find this is a great time of year, right? Teachers are reflecting about what went well last year, what they might try and do differently next year. And as part of that, clearly as they try and get ready for how they might do something differently, they're concerned about, how do I execute on that? So Camp Promethean gives them an opportunity not just to interact with us, but with each other as teachers to teachers. Last year, we had over 4,000 attendees of this virtual event. I don't know what the final count is for this year.
It's over that.
It's over. So, but it's a ton of the content is generated by teachers, either the Promethean employees that we have that are former teachers, or by the participants in the event itself. And then we have tons of videos. We try and have fun with it. That's how you keep your sanity in K-12. And we're really encouraged that that kind of adoption and that kind of attendance in the summer means that we're giving the right people a voice and we're listening carefully.
All of the links that we're talking about today are going to be over on our website over at teachercast.net. I definitely have links right now to Camp Promethean. You guys got to check out some of these videos. There's a lot of great stuff. If we can embed it, I think we're certainly going to try to do that on our website so everybody can see it. So what I want to end up today with is just kind of a quick roundtable here of why should we be thinking about gamification for this year, right? I always look at the summertime and I say July is a big Saturday, August is a big Sunday. And you said it yourself. Now that we're starting to reflect and think forward, what are some of the things that a teacher should be doing, writing down, thinking about, even maybe resources to go, find online if they were interested in doing some kind of gamification in their classrooms?
Yeah, so I can start out. And one of the things that our folks tell us is that this is oftentimes a time where you're physically less active, not going to the school every day, but mentally really challenging yourself and really doing research, really chatting with peers. And we try and support that as much as possible. In summertime, that's actually when the heavy majority of our our hardware components are installed. So we're furiously busy at this time of year helping schools update their infrastructure. But our teacher community is thinking deeply about what to do. And a lot of that is review of tools, making sure they understand how they can use it without really having to think about it. In other words, how do I get fire and forget capability? How do you get to that point where when you're driving your car, you can operate your radio and you don't think, gee, if I start doing this, I might drive off the roadway. So some of that is just getting, we get a lot of requests this time of year for folks to say, how do I brush up? How do I get deeper in this particular aspect of your Active Inspire or ClassFlow or casting or other pieces? And we've tried to make sure those are all available in small, bite-sized, digestible chunks so that folks can get deeper on that. Cheryl, what are your thoughts about that in this time of year?
I'm a planner, so I always am, a kind of an ounce of prevention type. So I would be thinking through what the structure and the framework is that I want to have. If I'm going on to teach the same grade and subjects that I had taught the prior year, then you've got a pretty good understanding of how your lesson's going to come to you and what the curriculum's going to be. And so thinking through where you can add the gamification aspects and what that planning or framework would be, and then how it can be represented in your ed tech in a seamless way, right? And thinking through how do you have everything you need to, you said, right at your fingertips and working easily.
Yeah. We certainly want to know what you guys are thinking out there. You can, of course, find us online on Twitter at TeacherCast. And you can, of course, check out everything that's going on over here at Promethean. Guys, I want to say thank you so much for your time and being on here. One last time, guys, where can we go to learn more about Promethean and get connected with you guys?
Cheryl.Miller at prometheanworld.com or prometheanworld.com.
Yeah. And we tried really hard to make sure our website is current, it's informative and fun. So I would say start there and go to prometheanworld.com. And if you got anything specific regarding product or ideas or anything, certainly hit up Cheryl or I. And we'll find out what we can do for you, right?
And of course, again, all the links are going to be in our show. This is the TeacherCast podcast. I want to say thank you guys for sticking with us this summer. It has been a great summer so far. Had a good time at the ISTE conference. Looking forward to all the great things happening in August. And of course, the school year happens very quickly for some of us, and we want to be there with you. Don't forget that we've got some great channels on TeacherCast. If you're looking to learn how to podcast, we've got educationalpodcasting.com, where you can learn how to bring educational podcast, audio, video into your classrooms. And if you're looking for some great lesson plans, you can head on over to podcastingwithstudents.com. And if you guys out there are instructional technology coaches, you can, of course, check out the brand new AskTheTechCoach.com. We revamped our entire instructional technology department for you guys, and it's not going to be too long before we're relaunching our Tech Coach Mastermind. Check that out today over at AskTheTechCoach.com. We would love to have you guys as part of our professional development. And again, that wraps up this episode of the TeacherCast Educational Network. My name is Jeff Bradbury, reminding you guys to keep up the great work in your classrooms and continue sharing your passions with your students.